All right, it's a weekend in the winter in Canada, which for me means I'm probably working on a car or a truck today. Case in point, 2005 Nissan Frontier that was going, that's a direct quote, repeatedly. And well, you know, it sounded like it was coming from the driver's side rear. I was hearing it kind of under my butt. So naturally, that's where you check. And naturally, that's not where the noise was. It was in the passenger side front. It turned out to be a CV shaft. So today, I'm going to take it off. I'm going to throw it away. I'm going to put on a new old one, probably rob it off a parts vehicle because I have one and I'm cheap and it's available. So if it fits, it's going on. This is not a how-to video. It's never been. People are like, I hope this wasn't a how-to. No, I'm telling you it wasn't a how-to video. It's a show you what I did video and maybe, just maybe say, hey, you might be able to manage doing this. It's more of a encourage you to try video. There's plenty of other people with better how-to videos. You should go check those out. But if you just want to see what you can see, what things look like, what I did, I'm just doing it basically so my kids can see why I froze to death in the garage in the wintertime. You can see your breath today. It's great. First thing I'm going to do, though, is pull this tire off, put some heat under there to get rid of all the ice that's there, and go have a cup of coffee. And then I'll come back, and we'll deal with the rest later. Okay, so what I've done is cut the boot on this CV shaft off so we can see inside of it, because, you know, it was pretty apparent it was bad. Check this out. It's bad. Here it is. And in case you weren't, you know, 100% sure, it's not supposed to do that. Nope, not at all. Okay, so as the headgear would suggest, I'm here in my very uninsulated, unheated garage in the winter. But got my little personal comfort heater, just inches from me, because, you know, why not catch my coveralls on fire? We're gonna get in here. This is what we're gonna do that I know I gotta do. I gotta release this top ball joint, which hopefully will go easily. I need to release the tie rod, which hopefully will go easily. We need to break this off of here, which hopefully will go easily. We need to remove the caliper, and we'll hang that up in there, which hopefully, if you haven't caught on yet, will go easily. I suspect I'm gonna have to release the shock, or the strut rather, down here. I don't want to. I'm hoping to be able to get it out without doing that, but I'm almost certain I won't be able to given the clearance. So we're gonna dig into that and get started. Okay, first things first, we're pulling cotter pins, and everybody's got their favorite tool. I'm curious what your favorite tool is, because I'd like to learn. My go-to right now is this pair of side cutters that I cut a live wire off with that are now, you know, mostly useless for cutting. That's what I'm pulling cotter pins with. So we get up in here, we get the pin straightened out as best we can. The other side is mostly straightened out. And then we just hopefully talk it in to coming out of there a little bit at a time. And then we're gonna do the same thing down here on the top of the tie rod, and we're gonna pull that out. It's wintertime in Canada, and I live in the salt belt, if you can't tell. So things are just a little bit, you know, coated. Some of that's salt, some of it's snow and ice. Some of it's undercoating that we put on up here to try to preserve this stuff before the winter starts. It's just all around a pleasure to work on vehicles in the salt belt in the winter. If you are someplace clean and not salty, I'm jealous. Okay, so there's probably a right order, and this probably isn't it, but like I said, not a how-to video. So I'm taking the caliper off first. I'm gonna hang it up there. I'm gonna use this fancy caliper hanger that used to be, I don't know, a piece of scrap wire. So you don't need to buy anything, you can just use that. Hang that up out of the way. Then we're gonna break these, this right here, flop everything out of the way, and kind of see what we're doing. These, I think, were a 19 mil, and I had to use a power bar to get them started. So if you have to do that, and you can't get things to line up, sometimes popping your bar off your socket, giving it like a quarter turn, putting it back on, will create the space that you need. That's what worked for me. So if that helps you, now you know. There's a bolt right here, and there's a bolt on the bottom, right down here. Some guys remove the caliper, but leave the caliper bracket on there so the rotor stays on. I just want more room. So we're gonna set the rotor aside. The other thing we're gonna need to take off is at least this part of the sway bar link. I'm almost sure of it. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that as well. And just kind of get that ready to go. I break all my nuts before I take them off because having everything secured gives you stuff it holds things in place so that, you know, you can torque on things without moving everything and then having to fight with it. We're also gonna pop these off and out of the way. The wires for the wheel speed sensor right here, and right here. And then we're gonna have to take this plug apart. I don't know if that's necessary or not, but I don't want to break anything. So we're gonna disconnect that as well so we're not fighting with it. So when we flop it out of the way, things can move without breaking this sensor off down in here. That's all right, the tie rod is broke free. This is free, but the ball joint itself is still seated. Deal with that. Oh, nope, it just let go, perfect. So that's excellent. These were both 22. This right here on your sway bar link is 18 with a 19 mil wrench. I think you can see that right there on the back to keep it from turning. So we're gonna get rid of that, and then we're ready to kind of attempt to take this off. Cotter pin, this little cage, and a 32 mil axle nut, and then we're gonna try to lay the whole thing out and see what we've got to work with for room. Okay, we'll give you a real good look. Here's how this works. Now, I left this in place. There is some down pressure. I did not support it because I was hoping the down pressure would help the ball joint release, and it did. But you just want to be aware that that exists. Mine's separated because, well, as we've established, this little part here is toast. So I was able just to flop it down. I don't think I'm going to be able to get it out. In fact, I'm almost certain I won't be able to get it out through that hole. But I'm a sucker for punishment, so I'm going to try before I take this off, but only for maybe a minute and a half. If you find you got to take your strut off, you're gonna have to let your sway bar go on the other side to create room to work. So you can rotate it down out of the way. Same thing on the other side. And then there's 3 bolts up here. Lots of salt, oh, my soul. It's a good winner for it. And that should come right out. Obviously you're gonna have to support the bottom of the jack or something, but we'll get to that if we must. For now, we're gonna try to get this to release and see what we can do. Should also tell you this, if mine hadn't separated here, sometimes you can leave it connected, leave your axle nut on, and a little tug like this will help it disengage in here. Mine is not going to, which means it's gonna get a little more dicey to get it out. So we're gonna have to go in here and probably with a punch or something, just try to give that a tap to get it to disengage. There's a little locking ring. Anyway, we'll figure. All right, I want to show you what I did in case you're struggling with this. Again, not a how-to because I use tools as they're designed. This thing right here, put it right up against the shoulder, gave it a little tap with the persuader, and now CV shaft is free. So we'll go pull it out. Just give her a little tug and out it comes. Now, that's what I figured would be the case. We're not gonna have the room or the clearance to get that out under here unless we can do some sort of fancy kind of finagling to roll it in under there like this, and maybe it'll go through that hole. So we may get to leave there, it's out. We may get to leave this in place if we can get the new one through there. Time will tell. Now, due to the fact that mine was broken, I still have to get the rear part of this out. You wouldn't have to do that probably, because hopefully you'll catch this before it's completely broken off and separated. But due to negligence and just a general lack of care, because if it's not broken, why would I bother changing it? Still have to do that. So to do that, I took the cotter pin out of here. We're gonna take this cage off. We're gonna break that 32 mil nut loose. And typically that'll be loose. You could use a punch in the center here if you needed to, that little divot, just to loosen it up. But that's usually not necessary. In my case, because I don't care what happens to it, I'm gonna take the persuader, hit it right there, and it should fall right out the back once that nut's loose. That's the goal. And it did. There it is. Okay, here's the two I got. The one on the right is from my parts store, donor vehicle. The one on the left, well, it's the one that just came out. And I know they're not perfectly together, but all the measurement, the splines are the same number of teeth, the same. They're just the same thing, you know what I'm saying? So we're gonna go ahead and put this one in, and it'll last, you know, maybe 15,000, and we'll have to do it again. But for today, the stores are closed because I didn't know what the problem was till I got in here. I have this part, I need the truck tomorrow, it'll get me back on the road. So no doubt, unsurprisingly, to those of you that have done this repair before, I could not get that in there without taking this bolt out. I didn't have to move it far, just millimeters. So we released the top of the sway bar link on the other side, rolled that out of the way, brought this bolt out, moved this down literally maybe that far. This is now in the cavity it needs to be. I'm gonna go ahead, put a little grease on the end of it, just a little bit, and we're gonna stick it in there and try to get it seated. Now, I'll show you on the other part. There's a locking ring right here. This one's dirty because it came off in the dirt and I don't care. Locking ring right there. There it is, yep. I don't know if this makes any difference or not, so if you know, please put it in the comments. But I have found when I put that opening right there at the 6 o'clock position, for whatever reason, it seems easier to get this in. I don't know if it matters. I don't know if it's a superstitious thing, like wearing the same socks so you win a baseball game. I don't even care. I just know it seems easier, so that's what I do. Now, because I'm rebuilding an old part, because I want to do this job again in 3 weeks, I got it sprayed down with some fluid film just to try to get at the rust. I was able to seat that. Sometimes they'll slide right in. I put the axle nut on it right there, and I gave it just a little persuasion with a dead blow hammer, and it just right in. So you should be able to, you know, it's nice and snug. That's what we want. If you look in there, it's seated right up against the surface. It should be. Give it a good look. Now, I'm told that I should be able to get this in here without taking the hub off. So I'm going to try it out of curiosity. I'm not hopeful, but I may have to pop that hub off and put this back together right. But I just want to know. I guess I should also mention, for me, this is a good time to service parts. So I'm greasing my upper ball joint. My lower ball joint I can't because, well, planned obsolescence. And I didn't put a grease fitting in it. I can do my sway bar links, so I'm gonna do those. That's about all I've got grease fittings on under here, but it's a good time to do it. Little hint, again, not an instructional video, I don't give advice, I just tell you how I screwed up. I didn't do this time, but last time I put this back together before I torqued that lower strap bolt. So torque that first or you're gonna have to take stuff back apart. So as it turns out, I could get that in without taking the hub off, for which I'm grateful. It's all in. We'll torque this, and then we'll keep putting stuff back together. Yeah, there's a few things you're gonna notice about me. Number one, I don't know what I'm doing. Number two, I don't give advice, and if I do, it's probably not good advice. Number three, I don't give torque values, and the reason for that is you can get those on the internet for a Nissan for free. Yes, you can get the factory service manual at nicoclub.com. It costs you absolutely nothing, and you should do that. There's no good reason to take advice on torque values from some uncredentialed knucklehead that you found on YouTube that isn't giving advice anyway. It's just a good practice. Go get one, learn how to read it, and if you do read it, it's going to tell you that these cotter pins right here, I'll bend that later with 2 hands, need to be replaced. Don't reuse the old one. So, you know, I've fouled that up. It's also going to tell you that the oil seal on the other end of that CV shaft you shouldn't reuse. And it'll tell you the torque values. So I've torqued this, we're on the way back. All right, earlier I know you were all screaming, wait, your cage, you should have screamed louder. And I could have not wasted time remembering I hadn't put it on there. All right, it's a suspension, so you know, there's pressure on it. But you get the other side sway bar link on, put the jack not under your ball joint, you wanna be able to move this, and just inch it up till that slides right in. And then, at least that's what worked for me. I put this garbage on it because I know I'll be the next guy or girl that's gotta get in here. And then we torque this up. And then once that's done, I'll line these up and I'll keep jacking her up in the air if I need to. I might not even need to. I don't know if that'll fit just as is or not. Nope, look at that. Don't even need to. It's right where it needs to be. We'll put that on. My tie rod will go on. And we'll torque here. here, and right there, and then we'll start putting the brakes back together. Good times. Inevitably, the hole for your cotter pin won't line up. So don't panic, just tweak it a little further till it does, and it'll be fine. At least I think it will. I don't really know. I don't do this for a living, and the people that do don't get paid enough. The other thing that I often do is before I put this cotter pin in, I goop it up with a little bit of this don't get stuck stuff. I don't know that it actually helps, but there's a good chance that I'll be the next guy in here, and I just don't want to deal with a rusted in, stuck cotter pin. Same thing up here, it didn't line up. So we'll turn it just a little bit till it does. Okay, so inevitably, when you're doing this, you probably will break the clips off of this thing. At least I did, because that's what always happens. So, I've done this before, it's very annoying. You bend your zip tie just right. You can fish it through those holes and make yourself a set of clips. Or you can try to find that part and replace it properly, but it's like pulling teeth. So this is what I did. It takes patience, holding your tongue right, a few words, but you'll get it. There you have it, 2 zip ties creatively arranged and the connectors in place. Look at that. I just didn't want it floating around under here free. You can even release it if you do it just right, but that's for another day and another time. Good times. Okay, all ready to roll the tire back in place. Put it back on, and then take this thing for a ride and hope we don't have a rapid, unauthorized, and unscheduled disassembly. And hopefully the is gone too. If you watch to the end, I suspect it's less because this video was helpful and more like it's watching a train wreck and you just can't look away. But again, it's not meant to be an instructional video. It's meant to be you can probably do it, maybe. Probably, I don't know you, but we're gonna try it out. I'm gonna fire it up. Hopefully the grinding is gone and we don't have one of them rapid, unscheduled, unauthorized disassemblies. Let's find out.